Hey everybody, you are here at Belly Dance Stories Volume 1 podcast. My name is Alexandra Molina.
And I am Valerick Molinary.
And we are really excited to launch this special project, the extension of the Belly Dance Stories theater show. And Val, why don't you tell them what they're going to be hearing on this season of Volume 1?
So in this season 1, we're going to be hearing some of the stories of the performers that were part of our first theatrical production. We're going to have Andrews, Lamis, and Yesenia. We're going to know a little bit more about their own belly dance stories and their performance and their creative process. And we're just going to go more in depth with the same concept of belly dance stories and hear more and continue empowering the voices of our community.
Perfect. Yeah. And I think this is going to be a really wonderful extension of just, you know, easygoing conversation. And you guys can just hear us chat about what we our retrospection and our reflection about this theater show that we, which we'll talk about the origin story in a second, but that we all of a sudden, you know, started to create, which is really exciting. The community has been really receptive, and I'm super grateful for that. I know we
and
are
I
both.
Think, it's also the access to behind the scenes that we usually see a beautiful performance, but there's so much going on before and after the performance happens. So I think this is a great space also for performers and us as an audience to continue learning from that artistic expression.
Yeah. And also to talk more about it because, you know, we'll go, it's like a gallery. We'll go and see an art piece, but then, you know, we don't really know what happened in the process, in the making. And that's always like a really special part about seeing a performance, musical, dance, or even like a painting or a book even, you know, the process that goes behind the creation. So this is what this Belly Dance Stories podcast is kind of hoping, you know, we're hoping that we get that engagement from our audience.
How do we start it? Belly Dance Stories.
How did we start? Yeah, our origin story. The Belly Dance Stories origin story.
The genesis. Well, I saw you in one of my classes. I think it was like an improvisation class or something, right? And I told Alex that I was thinking of doing a hafla or some type of theatrical show for students, and I invite you to let's collaborate together and do like a production so we can empower students and also provide them with a performing experience, right? And from there,
we just went for it.
We went. The plan was to do something very basic.
Super.
And then suddenly the conversation took another U-turn. And
that was wild.
It was wild.
Yeah. I had come because I wanted to gift myself a birthday present. And so timeline, right? It's 2022. It's April of 2022. And I wanted to give myself a birthday present. So I was like, you know what, this whole week I'm going to celebrate. One of the things I'm going to do is give myself a belly dance class. So I went to one of Val's classes. And then that was just one meeting, however, you know, because we had communicated like several things after that. So then I was like, man, girl, we were just talking after about our classes and that I had students that I wanted to do a small show at the studio, which I had done the year before. And then you're like, yeah, I have soloists and I have, you know, students. And then we looked at each other and we're just like, and then you go, you want to collaborate? I've been wanting to collaborate with you. And I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I spazzed a little bit and I was like, okay.
Then you sent me a message the next day in the morning. Hey, I thought about it and it's a yes.
Yeah. So then after that, so timeline, right? April, May, all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, we have to start choreography programs. And then, you know, in August is when we did the theater show and it sold out. And I was thinking about it and I'm like, that was super special because we had a lot of first-timers for belly dance that they had never seen belly dance before. And I think that was really cool and impactful. I mean, amongst other things that happened but we did it.
And also we talk a lot about that we wanted the show to really promote the art form. And we wanted it to also produce a good student show. And with that, we started to think about concepts and ideas that could help us get to that place. And then the creative writing idea came out on adding the voices of the students included in the performances as a way to create a more intimate relationship with the audience. And from there, the title of Belly Dance Story started, and then an entire different concept was born, basically.
Yeah, it stemmed from, like you said, that we wanted our students to have that place where they can shine, but something a little bit more that we could give them. And because they deserve it. They deserved everything. They're such amazing women, and you're going to hear more stories about them, and they influence us on, and we've talked about that they are very much a part of our creative process, because they are the ones that we're thinking about when we produce from the smallest thing to the biggest,
And
event.
also the important thing of this being a post-pandemic production, I think it makes it very special. That people already through the pandemic went through some heavy introspection. And then the show, I felt dancers and also audience was really craving for this type of performance. And I felt that in the energy of the audience. The audience was super active and involved and reacting to the performances. Like I have never experienced it before. So
that was really exciting.
That's how we started. That's how we started. So the podcast.
Yeah. So maybe for those who are watching that maybe not know about our belly dance stories, each one individually, Val, I wanted to ask you, could you briefly let our listeners know about your belly dance story?
So I am originally from Puerto Rico, even though right now I live in Miami, Florida. I've been living here for the past, I think, 11 years. And I started my belly dance story when I was a teenager. Took my first belly dance class when I was 13 years old. Came from a background of ballet and jazz and acrobatics and gymnastics. So by the time that I was 13, took my first class, and it completely impacted me, impressed me a lot. My body was going through a lot of changes at the time. I was becoming this very voluptuous teenager. So my body, did not fit the expectations that certain dance disciplines had. Meaning that for ballet, you have to be extra skinny. And dance schools at the moment were very abusive. Like the teacher would come to you and directly say to you, like, you're fat. And there was so much pressure. And I remember not really feeling too comfortable with my body. So when I took the first belly dance class, I was like, this feels different. And I became obsessed, super obsessed at a very young age. And then started coming to the United States to take classes with different Egyptian teachers. I love Egyptian style. That was my first love. And then I continued growing. And being in Puerto Rico, I work as a professional dancer, produce also events. And then I started to compete outside because I wanted to have a touring career and I wanted to teach internationally. And then I did a couple of competitions, got an invitation to come here to Miami, stay here. And for the past 10 years, I've been lucky enough to be traveling, teaching a lot, producing a lot of things here. I had a studio also. So I had a very creative life, very productive, and super excited for this new project because I feel really looks like me, and I love to work with you also. How about you? What's your belly dance story?
So my belly dance story, I also started as a teenager, and I went. I went with my sister Luisa, which she is also a belly dance teacher and performer. She has 2 babies now that she's working on growing, right? But we started as a bonding. We went to classes together. I was young, and she's a little older than me.
How old were you?
I was 14, 15, something like that. We started taking in 2005. Here in Miami.
You were a teenager also.
I was also a teenager. Yeah.
Did you know?
You know.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Learn something new. But yeah, I was a teenager, and we started in 2005. It was either going to be a flamenco class or belly dance. And then belly dance was getting really hot in Miami at that time in 2005.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Shakira was coming out with her music, Ojos Así, and then there was like El Clon.
El Colón was a phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah. And we didn't have dance backgrounds, but we loved dancing. So there was always music and singing and dance at my house, at my home. And so we just wanted something to do together. So we started belly dance classes at Belly Motions, and that's where we grew from there. So it was kind of like going to college with her, because eventually we ended up choosing the path of a professional dancer. So we started learning how to teach together, started learning how to perform together. So it was
you guys
really
bonded.
good. Yeah, we bonded even more. She would take me everywhere. You know, I was like her little one that she would take me everywhere. So, and then I eventually, when in college, because originally I had thought that I was going to work in the art fields, that I was going to be a curator, work in a museum, be an art director, that whole field, right? And I did study fine arts and art history. And, but now I'm starting to see everything come together. And this project has been so beautiful and just very smooth. Working with you has been super smooth.
Sí.
I mean, just to have this whole project start off it seems like a fast timeline from May to August, but to us, I guess it feels like, man, that was like super chill.
Chill. I also think that the fact that we also have like artistic academics
You too,
approach.
yeah.
I study literature, so that's how the combination of creative writing and dancing also it's part of the project. So I think that makes things like we speak the same language.
Yeah, it makes that easier for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, we're super grateful. And then, this is part of our dynamics. We're constantly praising each other.
Yeah.
And it just go like 10 minutes of I love you. So
we cut it a little short for you guys.
we cut it. Yeah. We already know that we need to control ourselves.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about our performances at Belly Dance Stories. Your performance was the calligraphic dancer. And I know it's a project that you have presented in the past. So tell me, how does it feel to revisit a piece? Do you feel this piece evolve? Do you find out different things about this piece? Share with us a little bit.
Yes. So Calligraphic Dancer was a project I started in college back in 2012. And that was figuring out how to combine the visual arts with the performance arts, the performative arts, and Oriental dance. So at the moment, I was studying Japanese calligraphy and line work and very Zen art. So that influenced me a lot. And then I was dancing a lot at that time too. So I fused them together. I created an alphabet, like a language of 10 symbols, and that became Calligraphic Dancer. Along the road, up until like 2013, 14, I started to engage my students and ask them if they were willing to learn the language. And I created a scroll that was to Hossam Ramses and to Omri. And the first minute or two is the scroll, and then with the intention that they did workshops previous to performing to the scroll while they watched it moving and hearing the music and interpreting the symbols on their own. So that was a very interesting project that I did with them back in 2014. 2014 and 15 because I had a small exhibition in 2015. I thought I would add more to the project afterwards, but I somehow just life happens. I stopped it. But revisiting the project was really special because, of course, we grow, we learn. I'm not the same person that I was. I mean, I am, but things change. You know, we grow, we learn new things. Art is the experience that we have with the world. So originally for Belly Dance Stories, we had said we would not perform. We just wanted, we were like,
we're going to produce. It's all for the students.
It's all for students. We're just going to direct. You know, that was the intention. It's probably still the intention that we're, you know, moving through. We're putting everybody first, and then we'll see if we need to. But so the prologue for Belly Dance Stories, we used calligraphic dancer Valerick was like, she introduced her performance, and then I was like, oh my God, which we'll talk about. I'll ask you about it in a second, but I was like, oh my God, Val's performance is going to be deep AF. And I'm just like, what am I going to do? I can't just do like a drum solo. So I was like, maybe it's time that I reintroduce this project. And so I spoke to you about it. We talked about it, and you gave me a lot of insight. You know, the dynamic sometimes is like when you lack something, I bring, and then when I lack something, you bring. So it's like a really cool.
And I love the Socratic method of always conversations.
Yeah.
Conversations, there's so much that you can learn from it, exchanging ideas with your partner in just a conversation.
In just a conversation, and we're pretty open to each other's, you know, suggestions, and then that's
and
how
also
we grow.
you suggested the piece to be the prologue, to be the first piece that I introduced, which for me was just perfect.
Yeah, it also surprised me. So revisiting that one, right? That's one of the things that it did to me was surprise me, because I saw it as a very neutral stance, a neutral perspective and introduction to it, because it wasn't about me. That project was never about me. It was always about the community engaging with it. So it was wonderful to have that on screen and just see it again and perform it in a different setting, an even bigger setting. You know, I was like, whoa. I looked at it while I was performing. I could barely focus because all I wanted to do was stand there.
And you had some intense questions there at the beginning.
Yes.
In the screen. Can you tell us a little bit about them? And we have them in the book too.
We also have them in our published Belly Dance Stories Volume 1 book. And some of those questions, how is a body read? What does a dancer's body look like? Is there a perfect way to dance? Is there such thing as a perfect belly dance body? How do we interpret our realities? How do we cope? How do we play? How do we connect? There was a couple of things that popped up in the screen after the scroll was presented. And that was meant for the audience to... Oh, let me put this back here. That was meant for them to engage first, so that we kind of guide them to create a tone, right? It was a tone that we wanted for the production, because we saw that everybody else is
a reflective tone.
A reflective
That's
tone.
what I love.
That's what it was. Yeah, exactly that.
So immediately asking people to think critical about the work that is going to be presented, and I think that was
themselves.
Majestic. Yeah,
and themselves and their own expectations.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it was such a great introduction.
Yes.
For the purpose of the show.
That was awesome. I'm glad. And also that we've talked about this belly dance as a very underrated art form. So, and a lot of times it's because maybe the audience might not be thinking these questions, may not be asking themselves, wow, we do as students and as performers and teachers, we in the community, we know that. But for others to start to understand outside of our world, these very important and very valuable questions that we ask ourselves, because they help better us as people when we are out and about in our own communities. So, but yeah, that was mine. And so let's move on to yours. So your performance piece, like I said, when you first introduced yours, and I was like, oh my God, I got to do mine. But yours was really, really impactful, and you weren't ready for it. And I told you, I'm like, Val, you should really do that one and not the other one that you were thinking of. So let's talk about, I have one word for you: vulnerability.
Yeah, that's a heavy one.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that I've learned, or the way that I practice this dance as an artist and also as a person, is that I have used this dance to cope a lot. And dance offers me a safe space for me to be vulnerable. And I feel that that's so important also for us to find spaces, people in which we can feel comfortable being vulnerable. And when I decided the first time that I wanted to talk about my miscarriage experience, like I could notice that there was like this taboo or this traumatic experience that women were going through them totally in silence. And being belly dance, right? The same colonial term that we use, focus in the belly area. I was like, wow, this dance has this idea of this myth that there is about a fertility dance, right? And how me having a belly dancer's body also go through this traumatic experience. When I went through my miscarriage, I'll say to you that dancing felt a little strange. So I had to kind of like create peace back with my body and with movement. And, it took some time because all the movement gravitate to the same area of the trauma that your body went through. So I enjoy a lot what I like to call catharsis dancing, meaning that moments where I feel extremely joyful or extremely sad, I obey my emotions and kind of like put sad music that satisfy my needs and kind of like dance it out. And this is something that I've been doing a lot in my life. And same thing when I'm feeling like super happy, putting the tunes and the music that I enjoy the most and just like dancing all by myself and enjoying it to the fullest. So I always felt that in those dark moments where I've been experiencing, let's say, like heavy emotions, I can always go to dance and kind of like, like let it go, throw it out, let it flow also. And it's such a great channel for you to also confront those realities, because I think we tend to evade them, or we constantly try to look for different ways to escape. And for me, dance has been such a beautiful personal school for me to kind of like dive into my own intimate places and dark emotions and learn also about them. And when I started to speak more about this and dance more about this, I had a lot of reactions from people. And I feel that I had a beautiful healing process to the point where I can still talk about this and it feels very comfortable. It doesn't feel like there's something there affecting me. Like, and that's a beautiful feeling.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful outcome.
So this was a self-reflection of yourself. It's just another way that dance helps us to self-reflect.
For sure.
And process. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
A lot of times we don't know how to process. We don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
So maybe how your process is very cathartic.
Very,
you know,
very,
so
very.
that's one way to go about it, and that's really healthy for us.
And for me, it feels like it's a constant reset of my connection of body, mind, and spirit. Like I feel I can nurture all of those aspects of myself, and embodying, moving is highly underrated too. You know,
agree.
like, and this dance has a way also, like the entire movements are constantly coming in, like in that same range of motion, your mind and your spirit is also doing the same. So I think this is what makes it extremely special.
And do you also use writing in your process?
Yeah. You know, I don't even remember who suggested this to me about writing and dancing. And I've been enjoying a lot journaling and then moving. And it's a very powerful experience, a really good moment for you to kind of like listen to your inner dialogue. You have to pay attention so much to it. Like it could be very self-destructive, and sometimes we don't even realize it. So yeah, writing has been an important part of my creative processes in general, for producing, for performing, for choreographing. It gives me images. It gives me, like, I can get it to my imagination in a different way, you know, and from there I jump into the body.
Yeah.
And I move my imagination to my body.
Yeah. Writing has always been in my life. My dad was a writer. So ever since I was little, he handed me a notebook, and I would just start writing.
I love notebooks.
It was I still have it. I have all my journals, but writing for me, it's like a massage for the soul.
Yeah.
And it feels so good journaling and just writing things down, and also being very honest with ourselves when we write things, and it puts us in that special moment. Starting to use a little more writing in my classes, in the mindful belly dance ones, and that has been impactful for the students that have taken that, because then we start to do more like movement meditation. But it's very useful, and I just wanted to ask you that question, even though I knew the answer, but for our listeners.
Yes.
Because writing is part of our belly dance stories. Yeah. It's part of the concept.
And for me, also from a person that comes from a bachelor in literature, like writing, I enjoy journaling. This is something new in my life, because when I used to write, what I used to go was immediately for poetry. And it's totally different things than you journaling and talking to yourself, than to you like creating something, you know, brand new, or like, so it was interesting because poetry for me, it goes like, it's easy for me to do it, but I noticed that all I do is images. And I think that's my dancer's voice as a writer. But it's great because through that process of me inventing aesthetics and realities, I question also my aesthetics through movement.
Oh, like give us an example of what you mean by images that you write.
I mean, like, it's
like lifted down. I don't know.
Yeah, like if I just go and describe, let's say, is that I write in Spanish, so it's difficult. You know, if I say the spirals of my fingers,
okay,
talking about my fingertips, and somehow that stimulate my intellect, immediately I will want to try it and spiral and go with it and transform that experience into maybe a screen dance video that it starts closing up in the spirals of my fingers, and from there, so that's how the idea continues.
That's
evolving.
Really interesting. That's really cool. Yeah, I didn't know that about you.
Yeah,
that's fantastic. That's brilliant.
So yeah.
Okay, cool.
So I like poetry. I like, you know,
Yeah, and I'm a straight shot visual person. Like I'll just draw those symbols. Vocalizing things is harder for me, so it's kind of like we're the opposite in that way, because that's what I was.
But there's a relationship too, because I'm using words.
Yeah.
So I use words to create the pictures. You are working immediately with the image through the trace and the painting.
Yeah, that should be our next collaboration.
Oh yes. So this is how we always work. It just goes. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, and then when Andres is involved, my boyfriend, that also helped us.
No, Andres is amazing.
Yeah, he's Andre Gottlich was one of our producers, sponsors, and when he's involved too, it's like more ideas, and then we get other people involved, and it's like more ideas, and it's an idea fest, and it's a wonderful, it's amazing.
It's great.
That's a really good. Those are all amazing exercises for artists to be multidisciplined.
Multidiscipline and also practice creativity in a different way. You cannot really teach people how to be creative, but there's ways in which you can stimulate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can
process, nurture.
Yeah. It doesn't. People think that the artist mind is like, it's not. Has a lot to do with practicing the same techniques and tools.
For
and
sure.
Just spewing out ideas and movements and just going, because that's one of the ways that we start to exercise and start to open up the neurons and they start connecting in our minds and our brains. So for the next belly dance stories, our goal is to continue to, of course, involve the community, but in a way that is a little bit of like, how do I explain this? Do you have a...
Yeah, just involve the community and participate in the process.
Participate in the process, see what they have to say, and then from there we start to curate what the message is. We got lucky with this belly dance volume 1 because what everybody had, their own personal themes, somehow serendipitously wrapped and entwined with each other.
Yeah.
So we were able to have a prologue, a chapter 1, a chapter 2, and an epilogue. And then it just kind of, kept transitioning in the same kind of narrative. So what we want to do is have that for the next rounds.
And also we wanted more topics. We wanted more stories. We wanted more people. We wanted also our community to also be involved and take that first production kind of as an invitation of the type of conversations that we can have. And it was interesting because many of my students came back to me and they were like, I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that. So they were inspired and like I connected with my students in a very different level after this performance. So I think the submissions is great. For those of you that are interested, it's all in our webpage. Okay. It's an application form.
It's an application form. It's
easy.
It's easy. It does take a little bit of thoughtfulness, but that's only because, we want this particular project. Not all of our projects outside of belly dance stories are going to be like that, but in this one particular one is more about how can we bring belly dance, one of our themes, how can we bring belly dance outside of our belly dance community so that it's known and not so underrated. We want, because we got a lot of really special reactions. I know I did from the people from the audience. So like I mentioned before, we had a lot of new people that had never seen belly dance before, and they were like crying in the audience, and even people that I knew that looked around, they were like, oh my God, there's people crying. It's great. Like, when
they were moved.
They were very moved and also happy, and it was a mix of things. It wasn't just sadness. It was joy. It was connection. It was just deeper. So that was already something that was really helpful for coming up with the next one as well. Like, we were like, oh my God, we actually did this, we wanted to. Because I remember telling you, I'm like, we have no idea how the show is going to look like. We're like, I don't know what it's going to look like, but we want something like this. Finally, we did that. And then afterwards, we were both like, oh my God,
after
a high.
you do it, you were like, okay, I want to do this next time. I want to change this. I want to try it that way. And we're like, we're going to do submissions. We want to hear more from you guys.
We want to hear more from the community. Yeah, exactly. So send us your stories. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't, even if you think it's not so cohesive, we're also there to help you out in case, we do work with you. We do work with each one of the soloists and the choreographies to make this happen, because we record your voices, what you want to say. This is very important that we have that creative writing.
And there's a process. Of producing this event that it's different from other, in the sense that it's not just only sending the music,
like what normally do.
It's like we have to come here, record it in the same context that we are right now at HGAB Studios. We also do a photo shoot here at HGAB Studios also. So
it's a whole mini production.
It's a whole mini production.
And the performers, I mean, we're going to hear from a couple of them, but they all had really good experiences. So we're super grateful for all of them that trusted us.
And you're going to get to hear more of them here in the podcast.
Yes. So thanks so much to the performers for trusting us with this fun and very interesting theater show. And what else? Let's wrap it up.
Let's wrap it up.
Yes. Thank you so much to HGAB for your beautiful podcast and studio and creative spaces. Thank you to our performers. Thank you to those who have helped us create everything. Nestor Molina, my brother who was our sound engineer, Andre Gottlich for being one of our sponsors, as well as HGAB was one of our sponsors. And Val, you want to add anything else?
Nope. I think we're ready.
All right, guys, stay tuned for the next ones.
So, if you guys like what you saw and heard, make sure you're following us in Instagram at
Belly Dance Stories,
and subscribe also to our YouTube channel,
Belly Dance
Stories. So we keep it super easy for you. You can find more information about our next theatrical production at
www.bellydancestories.com.
Okay? So
you can also email us if you have any questions at
bellydancestories@gmail.com. Easy peasy. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Share it if you like it. Share it.